Now let's move on to President Jacob Zuma's speech. Two huge things stuck out last night. His energy crisis plan and the fact that he says he thinks foreign citizens should not be able to own land here. Let's talk about the energy plan. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as though, the speech, whatever was in the speech almost seemed secondary, I have to say, compared to the preceding hour. I don't think there was too much in the content of the speech that was dramatic in any sense. Certainly not on the issue of energy. I certainly welcome the fact that the President spent a long time in the address, dealing with a variety of different programs, options, and improvements, potential improvements to our energy crisis. I'm not quite sure what it does about the immediate effects of load shedding in South Africa. The immediacy of load shedding, which Eskom have said will last for perhaps a number of years, is affecting business right now, and it's affecting business confidence right now. And whilst there were a few plans, one or two plans that spoke about getting more megawatts of power into the grid relatively quickly, well, let's see if that's going to actually reduce the amount of load shedding that we have in the country. There was a reference, of course, to nuclear, to a coming nuclear program, and we know nuclear power is extremely controversial, but what's even more controversial about any kind of nuclear program is the nuts and bolts of the program, the procurement, the contracts. Who are we going to do the deals with? And whilst I'm not necessarily against nuclear power, I would like transparency when it comes to this particular issue going forward, and we will wait to see whether there is adequate transparency, especially given President Zuma's recent trip to Russia and rumblings about a big deal with Russia on this particular issue. So, what can one say about the power situation? I think there was an acknowledgement that it was the deepest aspect of the current economic crisis in South Africa, and on the basis of that, government is serious about trying to tackle it. It's the fundamental basis for everything within the country. And if we are to kickstart that languishing GDP growth, which now looks to be less than 2%, it's nowhere near 3%, and it's nowhere near the 5% that the National Development Plan calls for over the next few years, then it has to start with power. On the issue of, I must just say one other thing on the issue, and I mentioned the National Development Plan. Well, where was this plan in the speech? The plan looked as though it had been relegated to the graveyard shift in the speech, which was the last 10 or 15 minutes, and barely as a concept, that NDP as a concept, barely saw the light of day in the speech itself. And I think it's also a reflection, in a sense, of the confusion, the policy paralysis within the ANC, that the President was unable to flesh out issues surrounding the NDP. There's a controversy within the ANC. The trade unions, many of them, don't like aspects of the NDP. The Communist Party don't like aspects of the NDP. And we've seen it play itself out in the President's speech last night, a rather bland speech which failed to introduce any new great policy initiatives, precisely because the ANC itself is so at loggerheads with itself on ideology and policy into the future.